here. This is, I don't know if you recognize how amazing a place like this is. In Las Vegas, we could never have an entire bookstore devoted just to independent literature. We just don't have a community that supports it. So incredible. I mean, we're fighting just to keep our regular corporate bookstores open. So something like this is amazing. The book that I want to read from tonight is called All Movies Love the Moon. It's about silent movies. So it's actually a history of silent movies from a movie called How It Feels to Be Run Over in 1900, which was about 50 seconds long, to a Charlie Chaplin movie in 1931. But you don't have to know silent movies at all to like it. It's just that the silent movies kind of provide a springboard to think about other things. So I'm going to read some samples from it. It's from Rosemetal Press. They focus just on hybrid literature, so image and text, or prose poems, flash fiction, that kind of stuff. This way, in this particular work, each work is image and text, and in this case, all of the images are title cards that I've kind of reimagined from silent movies. In silent movies, they had, people couldn't talk, of course, so they would use text cards to either speak, or they would use it to convey the plot or say who was coming in. So all of the title cards are kind of reimagined here. And I did that because I'm really interested in sort of images of text. I love how they could play with images of text. I love this idea that silent movies, even though they're sort of a dead art form, they could do a lot more in some ways than contemporary cinema could do, because of the constraint encouraged this kind of textual creativity. So I just thought that was so neat, and I wanted to play around with that in this particular book. So you get kind of a little history of silent movies, but it won't help you really understand the history of silent movies at all. It just sort of gets close. And since Adeena's reading was kind of a little sad at the end, I was thinking maybe we could try to find one that was a little funnier to start off with here. I'm thinking this one. Okay, so Hell's Hinges, 1916, is a early Western and kind of a traditional Western movie. But what I wanted to do is think about, this idea of Hell's Hinges, the edge of hell, and mostly I kind of just built off that title. What is it what does the door to hell look like? And then what happens if you go towards heaven and they say, don't really come, you're not really welcome. And then I don't know if you've seen, to understand this, you have to understand Jennifer Love Hewitt in The Ghost Whisperer. Have you seen that show? She helps people come to the light, and at the end it's this very heavenly moment, and everybody comes across, right? All right, so Hell's Hinges, 1916. When Jennifer Love Hewitt passes ghosts into the next world, grandmothers are always waiting, still knitting, saying, "Come now, this is the time." The show's theme song plays, building to crescendo. Walking tentatively towards the light, I tell my grandmother I was a good man, a professor even, deserving of this bliss. She responds in a voice more haunting than ever that from her angel's perch she saw me look at porn at work. Porn? Nana, no. Sometimes ads just pop up. Things have changed since, insufferable, she'd say. Our taxes pay for your girly watching. How can I explain this to ladies in heaven's aqua aerobics? Maybe, dear boy, you should not cross over just yet. I imagine hell is more painful, but less embarrassing, horrifically lovely, like the orange fire of burning oil wells in Iraq, or the white heat of self-ignited celluloid nitrate. Maybe Satan is not all evil, just more of a jerk, always posting pictures with ironic captions on hell's Facebook. 15 minutes of the sun sears my skin to pomegranate, and reportedly hell's to-do list is mostly weeping and gnashing of teeth. But there's also an openness to change. The gunslinger who finds solace, the woman who finds beauty in coarseness, a desert cat who finds a home. It's where you suffer sincerely, pine and write, where angels forget how happy they are, lacking any point of comparison. So that was from 1916. I'm gonna go chronologically from there, since I got a semi-light one out of the way. This one's called A Trip to the Moon. It's by a French director named Georges Méliès. One of the most beautiful, if you see one silent film your whole life, I would see A Trip to the Moon. It's absolutely just gorgeous. And maybe the second one would be The Eclipse, which is another Georges Méliès film. Both really, really wonderful. And then an important idea here is the idea of persistence of vision, which is, for a long time, people explained the way that movies work by this concept of persistence of vision, which is images burn into your eye, your eye sort of holds onto an image, and then it sort of fades out, but by the time that it faded out, another one had burnt into your eye. It's scientifically disproven early in the 20th century, but people really like this idea, your idea of the eye remembering things. A trip to the moon. The eye remembers, at least for an instance. Lucretius called it persistence of vision. 16 times a second, each frame sears into the retina just long enough for another to take its place, and voila, the dead come alive. For Méliès, persistence populated the moon, albeit not with the sturdiest of denizens. Hit a moonite with your arm, tap him with an umbrella, and poof, obliterated, a ball of smoke. The same cloud hovered over Star Film Studios when Méliès, watching his fortunes fall, set every reel, every mask, every prop ablaze. Just to be clear, it's a myth. Not Méliès nor his fire, both are real. The eyes, they do not remember as lovely as it sounds. A rational explanation debunks the theory, makes perfect sense, does well with test audiences. It's reasonable and best ignored, keeping persistence of vision persistence. Follow the beam. It's a rare kind of monster up there, roaming the moon, ghosting the screen. It's the product of daily sacrifice, where frames sear and claws tear and eyes forget until eventually the dead just stay dead. And let's see. How about The Mystery of the Leaping Fish? This is a 1916 film. It stars a detective, and this was before cocaine. I think this is kind of nice because you're talking about cocaine a little bit. This was before, in 1916, cocaine was not quite as they just didn't really understand that it might not be as good as it might seem initially. And so in the movie, Douglas Fairbanks, who was kind of like the George Clooney of the time, right, starred as a character whose main device as a detective was to inject bad guys and himself with cocaine. So it's called The Mystery of the Leaping Fish. The mystery is what they see wide-eyed in the post-dark instant when their world is overshot, when the prospect of a nymph is replaced by searing yellow light and a clamping of lungs. In those blurred snapshots, almost unrecognizable, Fairbanks in a fish floaty, pretending he's Sherlock Holmes, splash, Browning undressing a flapper with his eyes, plunk, Griffith sunning himself, pop, in some ridiculous outfit, it's absurd even to a fish, swish. Then the cold, the blue, and the slick slide of water and scale. The mystery is what it is if we would realize if we did the same, broke through, experienced some other world in shards. The mystery is where the fish go that we cannot. Let's see. Let's move on to some of the other ones here. The Last Laugh. The Last Laugh is a Renault film of 1924. Let's see. I want to say no. I'm forgetting my silent film directors. Anyway, it was a really important film where the protagonist was a doorman and really loved being a doorman. His entire life was all about being a doorman. And then as he gets older and starts to slow down a little bit, they demote him to toilet duty. And that demotion just kills him because at the time, his life, even as a doorman, was his job, right? So it was a way to think about the role of your job and your identity, I suppose. The Last Laugh, 1924. When I was 16, McDonald's did not call me back, even to say no. The sweaty-browed manager instinctively knew that I was not McDonald's material. Burger King took me in with the grace of a neglected mom and put me beside Glenn, who had stolen a lawnmower not once but thrice, and now had a lopsided back tattoo of a skull. He said thrice sometimes incorrectly, as in, "I will make your Whopper thrice." The manager deemed burger making too complicated for me and believed my true potential would blossom by putting things in fryers and pulling them out. For joy, Mr. Sarcastic in the drive-thru, I messed with your food. The last laugh is mine. You are not your job, but there's no dividing lines in the soul. For whatever I am, I'm also Burger King and DiNapoli Pizza, Ponderosa Steakhouse and grocery stores and bookstores and cafe sinks filled with dishes. I'm a human sign for companies with inexcusable indifference to human suffering. They hold corporate picnics in my brain, talking teamwork, synergy, and washing hands not once, but thrice. There really was a guy named Glenn. He did that. Let's see. Secrets of a Soul. I usually don't read this one, it's minorly inappropriate. It's one of the ones that I had a hard time even showing my mom this book. Secrets of a Soul was a movie about Sigmund Freud. 1926. 9 out of 10 men do not want to get jacked up on coke and then sleep with their moms. 1 out of 10 does, and that's why there's movies. Psychoanalysis has nothing to do with coke or mom banging. I'm sorry. It might be more fun if it did. Forgotten to most is the all-out wonder of a boy who sees a path and believes it needs to be discovered. Imagine Sigmund Freud saying, "Come with me. I've unlocked the secret of dreams. What you cannot have, you want, and that makes you what you cannot have, that makes you want it more. And what you want is not what you think. Dreams," Sigmund said, "are not stories at all, even the ones you think where chipmunks tell you to kill. Not stories at all, but hieroglyphs, some ancient self communicating to you in modernist verse. You don't have to understand it, you just have to say it again and again, because that's what your wants want, for you to acknowledge that you are one giant factory of the absurd. The secret of your soul is that you're a mess trying to pull it all together, boxing multitudes into a single home. Sigmund dreamed himself an explorer of this Borgesian structure, where he could follow winding halls and spiral steps leading nowhere and claim the last undiscovered territory as his own. And maybe 2 more. One's called Where East is East. It's a Lon Chaney movie, and at the end, the protagonist tries to get even with the, there's a woman that tries to seduce her daughter's new fiance, so she's a bad person, and the revenge that her ex-husband gets on her is to unleash a baboon on her. So Lon Chaney movies are fairly dark. So Where East is East. Toyo, Mommy is in big trouble, big trouble, and I need you to know this. Daddy is downstairs ready to release a wild baboon into Mommy's room. In other circumstances, this might seem funny. I mean, it's just like your father. Why go to couples therapy when you can just unleash a wild baboon? I need to say sorry. I mean, it wasn't all my fault though. Your father was always out in the jungle enslaving animals, and I was lonely. I didn't know, really, that the boy with the heroic chin was your fiance. He had such lovely eyes and a bottom like an apple. I can hear the thing grunting up the stairs now. What was that boy's name, dear? I really should have asked. Such soft lips. I do hope you two are happy. He seems like the sort to ride up on a horse, his shirt pressed tightly against his abs, and sweep one out of harm's way. I could use that now. I mean, not him, darling, just someone like him. Maybe someone closer to Mommy's age. And then the last one I'm gonna read, it's called A Woman in the Moon, and it's a really interesting one. The idea of the title here, the moon, it shows up a lot in silent films. Milius was really fascinated with the moon, and there's also this kind of, I love the glow of silent films. They have this just terrific, like silvery glow that reminds me of moonlight. The interesting thing about Woman in the Moon, it's a 1929 film, but they made rockets, and the rockets took up straight off. Previous to this, most rockets in movies took off from guns. They shot them out of guns. And so the burgeoning Nazi party around 1931 thought that the rockets that Fritz Lang had made were too close to military rockets, and so they confiscated the film and destroyed it as a way of, because they thought it would get too close to their secrets. So, The Woman in the Moon, 1929. What happens when you load a spaceship with 1 Fraulein and 5 confused yet consistently horny men? Nothing good. Why go to the moon anyway? Gold. Not ideals, not science. There's no use traveling to another world if you can't come back and buy more stuff. My Aunt Ruth had a grumpy last few years but died peacefully. It fell upon the mortician to do the dressing, casketing, and cosmetizing, all with style and dignity. Aunt Ruth spoke about space to me once, about a dream she saw the earth from heaven and did not miss it. The Nazis thought Fritz Lang's ship looked too much like a real military rocket, so they canned the film and destroyed the props. Why ruin the movie? Power.
Not Ubermensch or futurist aesthetics, just the all-out joy of control. There's no use ruling the world if you can't boss other people around. Problematically, the mortician was a bit of an idealist, and Aunt Ruth's breasts post-mortem now stood erect like two rockets ready to launch. They had not risen to such heights in 40 years. The unspoken family fear was that Nazis would come and take her breasts away. It was a different woman there, ages from the one who saw Earth from light years away. But there's no use dreaming if you can't change blue seas to daffodils. No use dying if you can't be remembered as someone else, someone better. Thank you.